Yes, baby. Of course, we gotta go out there and talk about this. Because any opportunity that we have to talk about prospects that were drafted when I was in my heyday of getting into the NHL world, we have to take it. So today, what we're doing is we're talking about a comment made by one Vancouver Canucks forward about another Vancouver Canucks forward, and how it pertains to a certain Boston Bruins forward. Let's turn our attention to the most recent interview done by Jake DeBrusk on Sportsnet, and a comment that he made on Jonathan Lekkerimaki that has really garnered some attention. Let's go out there and listen to this, or not listen to this, but kind of just read up about it. The link will be in the description if you want to listen to the video yourself. It's from Canucks Central, it's from 2 days ago. High praise for Jonathan Lekkerimaki from Jake DeBrusk. And you can see the quote here, "His shot reminds me of a younger Pastrnak shot." And if you listen to the clip, you can kind of hear DeBrusk stuttering a little bit. He kind of stumbles into saying it. He kind of calls himself out as well, like, oh, of course, this is going to go over well. But I do think that the young guy, Lekkerimaki, reminds me of a younger Pasta shot. And that is, of course, a very good thing to hear. Oh yeah, Lego making a video about how Jonathan Lekkerimaki has a good shot. Amazing. Like, that's all he's got to talk about, right? Yeah, that's true, but I also wanted to use this as an opportunity to compare and contrast the two. Because obviously David Pastrnak is one of the best goal scorers in the NHL. He's like top 3, in my opinion, along there with Draisaitl and Matthews. Sorry, Ovi. But when it comes to David Pastrnak, even though he is one of the best goal scorers in the NHL, unlike Matthews and Ovi, he wasn't taken first overall. Unlike Leon Draisaitl, he wasn't even taken third overall. Instead, David Pastrnak was taken in the 20s of his 2014 NHL Entry Draft, and a lot of people, myself included, will immediately think of Pastrnak and say, darn it, the Vancouver Canucks should have gotten him. Because if you remember, David Pastrnak was taken one pick after the Vancouver Canucks drafted Jared McCann. And yeah, sorry for getting all dramatic on you with the voice there, but that will always piss me off, the fact that Jared McCann, who's a good player by the way, he's a great player, scores a lot of goals himself, maybe not Pastrnak level, but he's still there, was drafted one pick before David Pastrnak, and then the Canucks traded McCann away for Goodbranson, that in which is a video that you could actually check out on this YouTube channel. It was published all the way back in 2016, but I wanted to use this as an opportunity to compare and contrast the Jonathan Lekkerimaki and David Pastrnak paths, because of course, David Pastrnak is a Rocket Richard winning goal-scoring monster in the NHL who pots in 40 goals a year like it's nothing. And then he gets 110-point seasons like it's nobody's business. He is the best player on the Boston Bruins, and it's not even close. However, when you talk about Jake DeBrusk, of course, a teammate of David Pastrnak's for DeBrusk's entire career up until his Vancouver signing, he's got what it takes to validate what a David Pastrnak shot looked like when he was younger. Now, full disclosure here, David Pastrnak, of course, 2014 draftee, it wasn't until 2016-2017 that Pastrnak put up a 30-goal year in the NHL. So, 16-17, that's 2 years after he was drafted. He made the NHL right away after being drafted, which is kind of nuts when you consider that he was a 25th overall pick. But I digress. He was still a good player, and eventually after 2016-17, he posted up an 80-point season with 30 goals, and the rest is history. If we go over to Elite Prospects and we use the player comparison tool, let's go out there and compare Jonathan Lekkerimaki and David Pastrnak. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit different because Pasta was immediately successful at the NHL level and only took 2 years to break out with 30 goals at the NHL level. But Jonathan Lekkerimaki is a guy who did have a bit more draft pedigree than Pasta. Lekkerimaki drafted 15th overall in the 2022 NHL Draft, Pasta 25th overall. If you go over to their draft-eligible years, this is what you were looking at out of 17-year-old Pasta and 17-year-old Jonathan Lekkerimaki. They were playing both in Sweden, actually, but David Pastrnak was playing in the higher-tier Swedish league in the Allsvenskan with 24 points in 36 games played. Lekkerimaki, on the other hand, had a 9-point sample in the SHL with 26 games played, and 35 points in 26 games in the junior hockey level in Sweden. They also both suited up at the World Juniors and the Under-18s. However, it should be noted that Lekkerimaki wildly outproduced David Pasternak's Czechia production in the U18 tournament. That may not be surprising, however, when you consider the fact that Team Sweden at the World Under-18s in 2022 was absolutely crazy dominant, and Czechia wasn't really in 2014. I digress. The point here is, both Lekkerimaki and Pastrnak were playing in Sweden in their draft-eligible years. It's just the season after, David Pastrnak went over to the AHL and the NHL. Meanwhile, Jonathan Lekkerimaki suited up in the Allsvenskan for the first year, scoring 9 points in 29 games. This is unlucky for Lekkerimaki because the year was filled with ups and downs. It wasn't really a great season, all things considered. He was a point per game in the qualification tournament afterwards, but his regular season production was definitely worse than what David Pastrnak did a year prior in his 17-year-old year. So now you take a look at the most recently completed season for Jonathan Lekkerimaki, his 19-year-old year. He played in the SHL with Örebro HK, had 31 points in 46 games, and 2 points in 6 Abbey Canucks games. Meanwhile, David Pastrnak, when he was 19, was potting up 15 goals in 51 games with the Bruins. It's not really a close comparison if you wanted to talk about, Lekkerimaki versus Pastrnak, and they have similar careers. The only thing similar about these guys, you could say, is their shot and maybe the lack of significant draft pedigree. Because, of course, 15th overall is not a top 10 guy. 25th overall is not a guy that we ever thought would be able to get 60 goals and 110 points multiple years. So, for David Pastrnak, he obviously was an under-scouted beast in the 2014 draft, and I think I do remember something hearing about how the Canucks and Jim Benning, apparently Benning was pissed off that scouts didn't recognize Pasternak's talent in that 24th overall spot where they selected Jared McCann instead. And some people apparently got talked to about that, so obviously Vancouver regrets not taking Pasta. It's always going to be one of these things where it's like, yeah, they were literally one pick away from having a league-defining generational goal-scoring talent. Pasta's amazing, and anybody who disagrees with that does not know what they're talking about. So for Jonathan Lekkerimaki to have his shot be compared to one of the best goal scorers in the NHL today by a guy who knows one of those best goal scorers in Jake DeBrusk, it is poetry in motion, and I think Vancouver Canucks fans have a lot to be excited about. Does this mean Lekkerimaki is getting a 60-goal season once in his career? Probably not, I'd say. If I had to wager a bet, I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I'd say that Jonathan Lekkerimaki's career high in individual season goals per season, I would say, is going to be 36. But it's not going to be like, 36? Really? Like, Andrei Kuzmenko had more. No, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be 36, and then he's going to have a 35 season, and then he's going to have multiple 30s, multiple 33s. He's going to have a lot of 30-goal years. And maybe one year he pops off and gets maybe 40. But I'm going to say conservatively, estimating it out, let's say he plays a full-length 10-year career in the NHL. If this guy scores 350 goals in his career, I think Canucks fans are going to be happy with that. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Jonathan Lekkerimaki and his shot being compared to David Pasternak's. If you're a Boston Bruins fan, how do you feel seeing this comparison tossed out there? I'd say, honestly, it's kind of, you don't want to throw labels around for all of the prospects in the world, but when you consider Jonathan Lekkerimaki and his overall status as a guy, even before he was drafted in 2022, a lot of the scouting reports, a lot of the overall records said that he was a guy that was just a pure goal scorer, and that was evident in all the numbers that he had. So overall, I think this is an okay comparison to make. If there was anybody that was going to be compared to David Pasternak's shooting ability, I think Jonathan Lekkerimaki is a pretty good bet. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Canucks fans, Bruins fans, how do you feel about this commentary here? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.